This is Tom Noonan. You're listening to Without Your Head.
All right,
and welcome to the Station of Decapitation Without Your Head. I am Nasty Neil.
This is Anna Collector.
That would make me terrible, Troy.
Yes, and joining us right now, and hopefully for the rest of the show, or for a while anyway, we have best-selling author F. Paul Wilson on the line. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Excellent. That's the end of the interview. No. We're going to talk about... You got
Just back to New York City, where I met with my publisher.
Oh, really? Well, what was going on there?
Talking about marketing the next book, how what audience we're going to target it to, and so on. It's going to be next summer, but you start early with these things, and they're going to give it a good push. So I wanted to get in there and give them my thoughts and stuff.
Mm-hmm. What
Put
is
them on the right track, as it were.
Yeah. What is your biggest audience? Like age-wise and
That was our discussion there. I mean, really, when I started writing the Repairman Jack books, I figured it would be a 90% male and 10% female maybe. And then as I went out and did signings, I kept seeing 50% females. And so I was saying, I guess I have a cross appeal here that I didn't really anticipate. And so I have a large female audience, and for that character. And Heather Graham at the time said to me that I should go to Romantic Times. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a magazine that reviews. It's basically romance based, but romance now has pretty much grabbed all the subgenres and incorporated them into romance.
Oh, that's
they have,
true.
Urban fantasy romance. They have science fiction romance. They have horror romance. And so I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'll go. And I convinced my publisher, who thought I was crazy, to send out about 500 books, and we would give them away. And they did. And all of a sudden, the traffic on my website pretty much quadrupled.
Wow.
And yeah, that's an amazing group of readers, because if they see something they like, they buy the entire backlist. And it was great. So now I have a very large following in the romance category, and which I never expected, but it's certainly something that can't hurt, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Does that affect how you write at all?
No, I only know one way to write. That's sort of like the way I write. I've never really tailored my writing for any audience. It's sort of just something. I mean, when I do the spell check, I always do a grammar check, and it makes me crazy to do it because I have sentence fragments that they always flag and so on. But the reason I do it is to get to the end, and it tells you the grade level that people need to read you. And it always comes out like fourth grade. And I was sort of kind of insulted. That's the way it was. But then I realized I'm writing, I call it thrilleries, which is short, punchy sentences, short paragraphs, lots of white space there, because the brain loves white space when it's reading, because it can hop around and bang, 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 go down the page, and when I was writing young adult, I didn't have to change my style at all, because they only had I was still writing at the fourth grade level. So I've never had to really change my style for the audience, and basically I only know one style of writing. That's just sort of like the kind of style I do.
For fourth grade romance novels.
No wonder.
Right. And my westerns.
Actually, a serious question though: does that affect the covers of the books if they're going to be promoted? In the romance section, would they have like they put like a Fabio-looking guy on the cover with his hair flowing, or?
Well, that would have helped probably, but I mean, the readers, the romance readers came to it without that kind of cover, and I mean, I think there are certain romance readers that are really attracted by that cover, but they're a really diverse group. I mean, it's very hard to pigeonhole them. If you get out there and meet them, there are some that love those covers with the six-pack abs and so on, but there are others who just get into it, and if they find a character they like, they'll follow that character, and you can't really pigeonhole them. I mean, the category romance reader with the historical romance, they like it this way, and that's the way they want. I mean, let's have another one just like the other one. But there are plenty of the readers there who are very adventurous, and that's why if you look at romance and the stuff that's reviewed in Romantic Times magazine, it spans the spectrum, and they know readers, and they know that they're they're just voracious readers, and they're willing to try anything. And if they like it, they'll follow it. And if they don't like it, just like anybody else, they're going to drop it. So they're just not as stereotypical as people like to portray them. And I'm not saying that in a condescending or pandering way, because I'm sure none of them are listening to this webcast, but or this broadcast. But they're a great group. I mean, I really love them, and they love to party, and I always have a good time when I go out there.
Yeah. So, will we ever see a Repairman Jack a film?
You may see a TV show, but the film is dead. The film is dead. So, I mean, they're working on TV show, but I mean, Beacon has some credibility in that area. That they own the rights, and they do Castle, which is like in its 8th year. So they have credibility in television, and there are people out there who want to work with them. So it may happen. It'd be great if it did. I've just, I'm burned out on that whole Hollywood thing. It's just, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, so what?
But
TV shows are really where it's at anyways. We talk about this regularly, and it's becoming common knowledge that the stories on TV programs are by far superior to what's going on in Hollywood for the most part. So that, I think, for most of us would be even better.
Well, I think so too. I mean, TV shows are character driven, and movies are more plot driven. So, and I think and what people have said to me is that Jack, Repairman Jack series is character driven, and they think there's certainly enough material out there that for them to make a series go on for years. But I would actually prefer that to a movie. But it's and I'm not, I haven't been too impressed with the way Beacon has, actually managed things. So I would love to see it, but they've obviously done some good stuff with TV, with Castle running all those years, but I don't know. It's just I don't. I never thought they actually got the character. A lot of the screenplays I saw, they wanted to make him this avuncular character who's like the neighborhood appliance repairman who does the stuff on the side. And I say, no, that's not the way. That doesn't work. That's not who he is. He's he's kind of a badass, and he was doing that stuff. But they wanted him to be this really likable guy, and he said he's really not that likable.
Yeah, but that's part of his charm.
A lot of characters are
mean. Pardon?
I said some characters are likable because they're not likable. That's charming.
Right. That's right. And I think the likable part about him is that he has a code. And he sticks to that code, and I think that's always an admirable thing in a character. Even if they do bad things, they're doing it for a reason. And I think even a villain with a code is much more interesting than the mustache twirling type of villain who's just being evil. So I mean, I love a villain who has sort of on almost to him an honorable agenda that he's pursuing. And even though it's at variance with everything that we believe in, at least he believes in something. So rather than someone who just, doing bad things to do bad things.
Yeah, heavy wielded and just...
And they never, I don't think they ever really, some of the people there did, but the head of the studio, I don't think he ever really got that. And so that's always been a sticking point, because he actually wrote a screenplay that was, castigated by many other directors that he sent it out to. And who's the guy who did The Scorpion King? I forget his name now. It's just
The Rock,
the movie.
the director.
The Scorpion King.
I know Rock. The Rock
Who is
starred. I know The Rock starred in it, but I'm not sure who directed it.
Well, the director came in, and he sat down with the head of the studio, and he said, he said he had the copy of the screenplay and had a copy of the tune. He said, I know Repairman Jack, and he held it as a screenplay. He said, this is not Repairman Jack. And he held it as a book, and he said, this is Repairman Jack, and this is what I would do, blah, blah, blah. And then another director came in, the one who did I Saw What You Did Last Summer. And he came in and said, I know Repairman Jack, and this is not Repairman Jack. And so it looked like there was a conspiracy out there that all these people, but Jack's got a lot of fans in Hollywood, but the thing is, they just weren't putting out screen. Finally, we got Chris Morgan, who did all the Fast and Furious movies, and he did a fabulous screenplay. I mean, he really understands the character. And it's just that by that time, so many people had seen the screenplay, different screenplays and different iterations, that they just weren't interested anymore. They said, I've seen that. Saw it, don't like it. And so, it was sort of, it had been ruined. But now with TV, it's a different ball game. So we'll see what happens,
See, I always thought that.
I don't have. Pardon?
Oh, I was just going to say, I always thought that Jack would lend himself well to like an HBO series. Just do like the
something where there's a little latitude with the violence and stuff.
Because each season could be like one of the novels. Right,
and you could just and it builds. There is a backstory that keeps rolling. So I mean, and that's, I think that's perfect for TV, because there's something you can hang your hat on from season to season. You're not just starting out anew.
Oh yeah.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, they are trying, and a lot of people out there want to work with them. So I got my fingers crossed. That's all I can do. I have nothing to say about it, and because when you sell the rights, you sell the rights. So you're sort of, it's like when you sell your house, you can't complain if someone wants to paint it pink. Just that's the way it is. You sold it. It ain't yours anymore, so shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And some of there's a number of producers there, and they really want to keep it true to the books, but there's other people there who just want to sort of do anything to make it happen, and whatever they think is the right thing to do, the flavor of the month, and that doesn't always work. So they're trying to second guess the audience and say, well, he's a little too harsh for the general audience. I just don't think that's true. I don't think he's too harsh for any audience, but because people are used to anti-heroes. I mean, there's nothing out there that they're afraid of. So, and he has an anarchistic streak, which, of course, politically frightens everybody out there. But he's so off the grid and anti-government that, and all those people are, pretty much statists and collectivists. So, that kind of scares them too, I think. And I would hate to have that watered down too much. I mean that's who he is. And if you water it down, he's not the same guy. So.
Right, if you try to make him too likable, he's not going to be liked by anyone then.
Yeah, that never seems to work.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why people still try that, watering anybody down, because I don't know when that's ever been successful.
Yeah, then you just kind of insult whoever you're
I
going.
think Game of Thrones has shown that you don't have to do that.
So,
I think that's one of the great lessons of Game of Thrones is that, you can kill off, you can kill off the people you love and those things, and people will still be coming back because I can't believe they did that, and they come back to see who else you're going to kill off. So I think it's changing, but whether it's changing in the people who own, it's also where they place it. I mean, they're trying to place it with a network. And I understand why, because a network is where you make the most money. I mean, that's where you get your audience. I mean, I loved Justified on FX, but if it got 3 million, viewers, that was like cause for, breaking out the champagne. But, on network TV, you get 17, 18, 20 million viewers. So, and there's the aftermarket. That's what they're all looking at, is the aftermarket when you syndicate it. That's when the money comes pouring in. So you've got to, you got to have broad appeal. And so you get a good syndication deal. These are all factors that most people don't understand what's going on. When you wonder, well, why don't you just put it on this? Why don't you just put it on TNT or something like that? Well, that's not where the money is. And these studios are in business to make money. And I don't hold that against them at all. I mean, that is what, that's what allows them to do the next project. So, and to pay their employees and all that kind of stuff, which is important, especially to the employees. So it's a whole complicated situation. But I think we're in a pretty decent position to, get a Repairman Jack TV series, but nothing is guaranteed, of course.
Mm-hmm. Even network, though, was pretty lenient on a lot of stuff, like recently Hannibal and shows like that. It wouldn't have been on TV
Holy crap,
years
Hannibal,
ago.
I can't believe.
Yeah.
I can't believe the stuff that they were getting away with. I mean, it was a 10 o'clock show, but wow. They, the stuff they got away with on that, I was amazed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are pretty crazy.
Too artsy-fartsy.
Yeah.
Dark. That show was dark. It was wonderful.
I mean, I thought that the camera work was just amazing. I mean, every scene was set up like it was like the last scene we're ever going to do, because it was just perfectly framed and set up. But it was awful slow, wasn't it? I mean, it was just like, oh, okay. These long, slow takes and these long conversations. I think some of the dialogue there was some of the best on TV.
I agree.
But it did the episodes did drag for me. But I'm an impatient person, so.
I really enjoyed the first two seasons. I was not a real big fan of the third season, but Annabelle and Troy here really enjoyed the last season.
By and large, yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Well, it was Well, they redid Red Dragon,
right?
Yeah.
And they also did Hannibal. I think with the pigs and did they do that?
Yeah,
they did that with the pigs and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought that was. I mean, I think if they left it at Red Dragon and Silence of the Lambs, I think. I mean, ideally, I think that would have been a perfect 2-book series. But Hannibal sort of turned Hannibal into a superhero.
Yes.
That bothered me. I think they explained too much about him.
Yep.
And there was a purity to his evil in the first 2 books that it was almost supernatural, even though obviously it wasn't. But there was something so pure about that evil that I don't want to know that his sister and things that made him like he was. I mean, he's much better as a force of nature. But once you start explaining him, then you bring him down, and then you can categorize him. I mean, this happens a lot with a lot of writers, like Lovecraft. I think made a mistake naming his gods. I think they just should have been forces. Once you can name something, it's a human thing that all of a sudden they're controllable, and you can pigeonhole them and say, okay, well, this is where he belongs, and now we're safe because we have a name and a place for him where he stays, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that makes them safer. And I don't think you want your evil to be safe. You want it to be threatening all the time. And that's why in the Repairman Jack books, I just had them called the adversary and the ally, because I didn't want to personalize them at all. This guy's sort of on our side, and this guy's definitely against us. It's like that. I think that's more effective. But that's my opinion. You can disagree with it or agree with it, but that's it.
I think those are all excellent points. That I hadn't thought of it quite like that, but you're so right, in my opinion as well. Because once you make that person, that character, human, you see those weaknesses. That's when you know you can chip. Like if you know Hannibal's got a sister, well, maybe you've now got an angle to get at him. You don't want an angle to get at Hannibal. You want him to just be this pure intellect, that it's all him. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, because I think once you understand something, then you've sort of tamed them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best evil is something that you don't understand. That's the most frightening evil, that you don't understand. You can't necessarily reason with them because they're not necessarily thinking in your terms.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think maybe zombies are in a sense popular, because they're more like a force of nature. You can't reason with them.
Yeah.
And in a way, I was thinking, I saw a clip from the old Day of the Triffids movie.
Oh yeah.
Zombies are like Triffids.
Yep.
They're sort of like walking appetites.
Yeah.
And you can't reason with Triffids, and you can't reason with zombies. So in a sense, maybe the first zombie movie was really Day of the Triffids. Who knows? But that's what occurred to me as I was watching. I said, hey, these are zombies.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
What you're saying there also reminds
me.
me.
Do a paper on that.
Yeah, I was saying what you said reminds me of for me the difference between the original Halloween and the Rob Zombie Halloween is in the original one, Michael Myers there is no reason why he's evil; he's just evil, and in the second one, it's all like explanation as to why this bullied kid grows up to be an evil guy. And I think it makes it a lot less scary.
Exactly. Once you understand him, he becomes a little bit safer. He's still a homicidal maniac, but I understand a little bit about him, and I just don't want to understand him. He had no rationality, and I thought that was what made him truly frightening.
Mm-hmm.
But when you reboot something like that, you have to, make some concessions to modern psychology and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. Well, we do want to mention that you have a you're part of there's a campaign out to make the Keep audio drama, and I don't know if you're behind this or if you're just giving them your blessing.
I've just given them my blessing. I have nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it'd be kind of cool, to have, a nice adaptation. It's not, for me, it's never really been, adapted in any accurate way. And I just thought this would be something where you could just put it on and turn out the lights and just, like the old, I used to like I'm not old enough to have listened to radio drama, because that was gone by the time, I was able to make sense of it. But I've had the old tapes. I bought the old tapes of some of the shows like The Shadow and Lights Out and those type of things, and they could be very effective. I would love to hear, the Keep presented like that in an old-fashioned form where you could really get into it. So I'm behind it, but I have no financial stake in it at all. Mm-hmm. I am just someone who's just boosting it.
Mm-hmm. No,
I mean, they bought the audio rights from me, but That.
But they have your blessing for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're definitely an enthusiastic group, and they have experience. They've done other adaptations. I mean, it's kind of a big thing, relatively big thing in the UK. These type of dramas, and I listened to some the other things they've done previously, and they've done an excellent job. So they're talented people, and it's been great to have it happen.
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of audiobooks, so I really like the idea.
I found I started listening just recently. I started listening to audiobooks,
Mm-hmm.
And I found that one thing I don't like about them is that I can't skim.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I'm a skimmer, and if you give me something that's over-described, I mean, I skim a lot, and I never realized how much I skimmed until I started listening to audiobooks, and I'm saying, oh crap, I'd be just racing past this paragraph. And I mean, you start describing, a tapestry, and you spend a page on it and stuff, or something like that. I'm just like, oh, come on, I don't care. It's red or it's green or that's it. So that's all I care about. I mean, don't tell me everything that's on it. But they're wrong. So I have mixed feelings about audiobooks, but they're a great way to pass the time when you're on a long trip.
Mm-hmm.
So, but and I'm glad it's one of the things. I always learned. I learned from Elmore Leonard when his rules of writing was he says, leave out the parts that people tend to skip. And I think that's great advice for any writer. Is just leave out those parts that people tend to skip. But I know there are people who just love description, and I'm not one of them. But if that's the way you are, maybe these audiobooks would be good for you. But I just have trouble getting. I listened to a girl on a train, and I was on a long trip, and I was thinking, I love the fact that she's an unreliable narrator, but there were so many things in there that when she kept going back to the town, and I was saying, why are you doing that? And if I was reading that on a page, I'd be skipping like crazy. Just saying, okay, you're not going back to town again, are you? Oh, you are? Okay, well, all right, let me skip through this. So it's one of those things. It's a taste, and a lot of people are into the narrators. They really have opinions about the narrators.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, that's a big part.
I haven't listened to enough audio.
I'll say
Pardon?
that. I would just say for me, that can really make or break an audiobook, depending, who's doing the reading.
Yeah, I listened to one of my own. I listened to Dark City. Is it Dark City? Yeah, the middle one of the trilogy there, just to see how they did a certain action scene. And the reader was really good. I forget his name now, but he was excellent. And I started thinking, well, maybe I'll just hang in here and just see how he does the rest of the book. And I was taken aback by how dark the book was. It's my own book, but I was, I'm listening to this and I said, geez, this is dark. And
what kind of weirdo would write this?
Yeah. And I'm saying, well, if this is dark when you're listening to it, what is Fear City like? Because Fear City, even as I was writing that, I said, oh, Jesus, this is really dark. I don't even want to listen to Fear City, because that's some of the darkest stuff I've ever done. I mean, I wanted to show, how Jack gets to be the guy you meet in the tomb, where he's pretty much a hard case, and this pretty well explains why he is like that. But I don't know. It's so different. It's a different experience listening to it, and then writing it and reading it. They're two different experiences, and sometimes you're not aware how you come across. And I was, as I said, I was a bit taken aback by the darkness in this thing, and I know that Fear City is much worse. Fear City, I just decided, well, this is why he's such a hard case, because he had to live through this and he had to do these things. So, but I think I was maybe too successful.
Well, now I'm looking forward to that one. I haven't read that one yet.
Well, if you like really dark, sort of revenge porn in a way, because it's something, and it's not necessarily all him, but he just goes along with it because he falls in with some people who are really hard ass, and he just goes along with it. So the Mikulski brothers, of course, they were in the first book, and they show no mercy. But this gets even worse. So anyway, I was happy doing it at the time. You don't always realize the full impact when you hear somebody else reading it. It's like, oh, really? Okay.
Do you think some of that is just the way they read it? Because maybe if you were reading it in your own mind, it wouldn't be as dark because you'd read it in a different tone.
Well, yeah, it's not necessarily the way they read it, but the fact that it just sounds different when you're looking at the page. You've written those words, and they're your words, and you remember putting them on the page. So somehow they don't have the impact. That's all visual input, and then you hear the auditory input, and it's a whole different experience. And this reader was very good, and I can't remember his name because I know a lot of audiobook fans pay attention to the readers, but I don't. And but he did different voices for every character, and I was amazed because I didn't even realize how many characters I had in that. I had a lot of characters. And he did a different voice for every one of them. It was astonishing to me that how he could remember. Well, this is the voice I used for so and so, and this is the voice I used for so and so. But he had different voice for everyone. He was very good, very good.
Well,
I wish I could remember his name, but
I recently listened to the Keep audiobook, and when I was listening.
Which one was that? The old books on tape?
Yeah, it's on audible.com.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So the
I wonder if they used the old. It was originally on books on tape or books for the blind or something like that.
Well, honestly, when I started listening, I was legally blind and one eye, wearing glasses since '06, and I really couldn't. I had a hard time reading books with my glasses on because I had really bad eyesight until I had LASIK surgery. So that's really how I got into the audiobooks. Not totally.
How long ago did you listen to The Keep?
Well, I just listened to it again recently, but I've listened to it before. But when I was listening to it again recently, because when I first heard the strain wasn't out or anything, but listening to it again, it really made me think that a lot of the backstory. I don't know if you are familiar with the show The Strain or the story of The Strain. But the backstory.
I've been watching the TV show.
Yeah, But it really reminded me that I think they lifted some of the keep for the backstory of the Master. I don't know if you see any similarities there.
Well, I saw an awful lot of similarities to Dracula. You know, the box arriving with the dirt and it was the the character who the minion who takes care of things and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
It was definitely.
And the older character is definitely like the guy who hunts Dracula, Van Helsing, and yeah.
Yeah, the Van Helsing character. Who was the guy who was crazy and
Renfield. Renfield.
Renfield, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Rats.
But when they went back and they showed like the history of the Master when he's in the concentration camp, it was different, but yet it was I thought it was very similar to some of the stuff in the Keep.
Probably. I don't have a lock on that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't own it. It's just, and but sure. I think I was one of the first to do quote unquote Nazis and vampires, which was how the Hollywood agents sold it to the movies. Just that one line. They said, "I got a book for you, Nazis and vampires." People jumped on it. Yeah, I mean, we sold the movie rights before we sold the publishing rights.
Wow.
Hollywood was way ahead of the curve on that one. They just jumped on it. But I think I was the first to do that. I maybe not. I can't be sure. But anyway, it was one of the more successful ones to do that, and certainly it's been copied plenty of times. But it's that level of inhuman evil against human evil, contrasting the two. I mean, that's irresistible to a writer, and I certainly don't begrudge anybody, wanting to play with that, because it's just a natural type of thing.
Plus, if you use real life
and conflict,
right, and if you use something that's happened in reality, in with something in fantasy, it adds a little realism to it.
Yeah, and if you set it in a certain historical milieu, it doesn't age. It never said, "Oh, this is like." I mean, I wrote some medical thrillers in the '90s where it's very important to get to a phone booth. And nowadays that's like, what? What's a phone booth?
Yeah. Actually, Annabelle and I found the last payphone the other week. We were in Boston. We saw, what's this?
That's right.
Yeah.
Walked around the corner and was like, look at this. We need a picture with it. Because it's an artifact.
Before it disappears.
Yeah.
And it takes coin.
Yeah, it was like embarrassed in shame around the corner where no one would ever go.
Yeah, I think it said like $1
now.
Yeah,
it was always funny
minutes.
about. Even back then, it was people were making fun like when the phone booths became kiosks.
Yeah.
And what's Superman going to do?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now, forget it. Yeah. I guess he's got to go into a men's room stall.
That's not pleasant.
Yeah.
Now he's just a flasher.
Yeah. Got a big trench coat,
Yeah, he's got a privacy curtain he takes around with him.
Now, since this is we talked about.
I never. Go ahead.
No, you go on. Sorry.
No, I was just saying I never bothered to update those books though. Even when I have the electronic rights to all my books up to 2000. Before 2000, the publisher would send you a contract and would say electronic rights, and that usually meant CD-ROM at that time. And my agent would just cross it out, and the publisher wouldn't say anything. Yeah, well, okay. Because they didn't mean anything. But by 2000, it became a deal breaker. So I have all my books before 2000. I have all the electronic rights. So I put them online because they were just sitting there, not doing anything. And but I never bothered updating the books because it's just too much of a hassle. I don't see the need of. You have to realize it was written in 1996, and cell phones were the size of a brick then, and hardly anybody had them. And they still use telephone kiosks. So you just have to go with it, folks.
Exactly. Now, we talked a lot about TV, but are there any recent horror movies that you enjoyed?
Let me see. I don't know if I've seen too many. I mean, I've seen a lot of thrillers and stuff like that, but I watch What We Do in the Shadows, but I thought it was just a little too hokey for me. I don't know if you've seen that one.
You know what, I haven't. I've heard of it.
Ex Machina was sort of a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a science fiction.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Premise, but it's sort of a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the singularity is pretty frightening. Let me see what else did I see. Deliver Us from Evil. I think that was just a little. That didn't do it for me. It was a little too derivative. Exorcism movies don't really, I think, do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I remember. I just don't think anybody's able to really get any better than The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very hard to beat that as far as a horror movie goes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think what else. A lot of them are very forgettable. I like thrillers more.
Mm-hmm.
I really get annoyed at the horror movies where, the guy moves his family into a house, and I'm trying to think, I forget the title of it, but, they find a tape or a film, and everybody in the family that used to live there is hanging from a tree, and you stay on, you don't leave. I mean, this is your wife and your kids,
Mm-hmm.
But you're writing a book, so you want to research this, and you keep everybody there. I mean, come on, one look at that film, and I'm out of there. One
really
funny
good
face
deal on
in
the
the mirror,
house, though.
I'm gone. I'm out of there. And so when the guy makes that decision not to leave, from then on, I'm like, okay, well, you're an idiot, and
Get what you deserve.
I have no respect for you, or I have no respect for this movie. It was I think a really good horror movie up to the very last scene was Tusk. Did you ever see Tusk?
Uh-huh.
The Kevin Smith movie?
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty disturbing and scary. Up until the very last scene, when the tear falls, and I just thought, oh, come on, that's ruined the movie for me. But up until then, it was totally original. I mean, I'd never seen anything like that. Just tonight, I watched. I just watched one of those revenge flicks, Dead Man's Shoes. and I think it was British. I know it was British of some sort. It could have been. Australian or something. But I needed subtitles, and they didn't have English subtitles.
Oh.
And the accents, I didn't know. Most of the time, I didn't know what they were saying. I got the gist of the movie, but the thing is, I didn't get any nuances because I couldn't understand what they were saying. The accents were so thick and muddled, and quick talk. It's like that Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Oh yeah,
where they had that one guy
subtitles for that.
from some part of London, and they always had subtitles for him. Even the Brits didn't understand him. I thought that was hilarious. But I mean, that's the way it was with this. I just got a few. I got the gist of it, but I didn't get any of the nuances or anything like that. So, what else? I can't remember. No, mostly I do shoot 'em ups, and my favorite shoot 'em up lately has been John Wick. I mean, that's just a super shoot 'em up. There was a compilation on YouTube where they went through all his kills in the movie. 76.
Wow.
He kills 76 people in the movie. And it's not one of those things where he just shoots them and moves on. He shoots them, and then he turns around and does a double tap to the head to make sure they don't get up again. It's totally violent and totally fun. And actually, I think he started the film, John Wick 2 right now, this fall.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know how we can get much more
You're gonna up
shooting
the
up
ante
than
in
that,
that
but
one.
who knows? I'll be there. I'll be there to look at it.
We'll go for 150 in the next one.
Yeah. Yes.
What was that Austrian
Let's
one?
double the body count.
Was that Troy?
What
Have
was
you seen
that
the movie?
Austrian one?
I haven't
you seen
seen
it?
Jo- I haven't seen John Wick, but I've heard a lot of people really enjoy it. So I'll have to check that out.
There's a great scene there where basically this super mobster's son likes John Wick's car. He sees his car and wants to buy it from him. John Wick says no. He follows him. He and his buddies sneak in at night, beat the crap out of him, and kill his dog. And they take the car and they bring it to John Leguizamo, who's the car guy, and says, fix this up so it doesn't look like, change it so it doesn't look like exactly like this. And John Leguizamo says, I know that car. And he says, yes, John Wick's. He said, that bone, I know the guy who owns it. He says, yeah. He said, we beat him up, we killed his dog, and, he's not going to bother you. And he says, get that car out of here. Get it out of here. And so the boss calls up John Leguizamo and says, I heard you disrespected my son. He said, yeah, I disrespected your son because he beat up John Wick and killed his dog and stole his car. And that this is the head of the crime in all the city. And he goes, oh. That's all he says. And that one little syllable just tells you everything about John Wick before you know what he does. And for the rest of the film, it just says, oh. Like, oh no. So it's a great scene.
Mm. Well,
so when you watch John Wick, watch for that scene.
I definitely will. I really enjoyed We're Still Here, which actually comes out Tuesday, but it's a really good horror movie.
It's like a good ghost story. That one's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, ghost story.
Mm-hmm. But it's
Yeah, I've read a lot better horror than I've seen. I mean, I just read Tim Wagner's book that's not out yet. It's called In the Mouth of Madness, and it's totally bizarre and surreal. I mean, it's definitely a horror book. And Mahita Bell Wilson's Last Night at the Blue Lady is I just finished that too, and it's sort of all ghost story. It's a ghost story, and it's so well done. She is good with characters that I hope a lot of people read that book. But Tim's isn't out yet, and I think Mahita Bell's book is just coming out. So I'm reading a lot better horror. Harrison Squared, by Darryl Gregory, is just super young adult, Lovecraftian stuff. And there's a book, and I can't think of the author's name, called Lovecraft and Carter. It's coming out from Simon & Schuster. Really good Lovecraftian fiction. So I'm reading a lot of great horror. I'm not watching a lot of great horror, though.
Mm-hmm. For people listening, how would they find you online? Either follow you on Twitter or your website, or what's the best way to find out about F. Paul Wilson?
Well, I'm on Facebook, F. Paul Wilson, Twitter at F. Paul Wilson, and the RepairmanJack.com, which used to get like 3.5 million hits a month, but everybody seems to have transferred over to Facebook, so all the action seems to be taking place on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So, Facebook and Twitter. But that seems to be where the action is.
Yeah.
The whole dynamic has shifted. I would say in 4 years, everything is tilted away from the website and much toward the Twitter, Facebook type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like Twitter, and I put movie reviews. I also have a movie review site. If you get my newsletter, I have the link to it, but it's where I put up all my fast forward reviews. I don't know if you get my newsletter, but I do these very short reviews. It's on it's on a WordPress thing, but very short reviews, and I rate it by the amount of time that I fast forward through it. So the lower the FF rating, the more the movie has engaged me. I'm not saying the better the movie is, but the more it has engaged me.
Mm-hmm.
So FF0 means it really engaged me. I didn't fast forward at all, but I just watched. What did I watch tonight? Dead Man's Shoes. That one I couldn't understand. I fast forwarded through that a lot just to the action scenes because anybody who was talking, I could barely understand them. So it really didn't make much sense to sit there and be confused trying to figure out what they were saying. So. That one got like an FF4, but not because it was a bad movie. It was just because, I just couldn't understand it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it's been good talking to you again. I think we had you on. It was I think 2006. It was 9 years ago.
Was that long ago?
I believe so.
No.
I think so. Maybe 2007.
Really?
I think so. It was a while ago.
Doesn't seem anywhere near that long ago. But I'm getting old, so time just goes. I mean, Christmas is just getting closer and closer together.
True.
Man, it's gonna be Christmas again.
Like what?
Wow, that's kind of scary. Because I thought it was like 3 years ago. But you would know better. You have your records there or whatever. But,
we won't wait that long before we get you on again.
All right. So, it was good talking to you again, too.
Yeah, 2007. I was a year off. So it was only 8 years ago.
2007?
Yeah.
Talking 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
Well,
I really am old. I have no sense of time. I have no sense of time anymore. And they say that's because as you get older, your brain starts editing out things you did before. So stuff you do repetitively, it just edits out so that it compresses time.
Mm-hmm.
That's your built-in fast forward.
I'll drive somewhere that I've driven 100 times before, and I'll get there, and I don't remember driving there. Somehow I got there.
As long as you
So all
still
that
get there.
20 minutes is gone, And of course, you're sleeping, but you don't remember anything anyway. So. Well, whatever. It was good talking to you guys.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, nice to have you here.
Paul, take care of yourself.
So maybe in another 7 or 8 years, we'll talk again.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll be like,
Okay.
hey, did we just talk to you last year?
All right. Well, it's good talking
See you
to
on
you.
the flip side.
All right, thank you much.
All right.
Yep.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
This is PJ Souls, and you are totally listening to Without Your Head Horror Radio.